Right, let us talk about something that happened in the last week that has genuinely shaken the entire AI industry. And I do not think that enough people in business are paying attention to it yet. A single Chinese AI model has just turned the US tech race completely upside down overnight. And it's Kimi K3 from Moonshot AI who has just beaten every leading US frontier AI model available, including Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, all of them. And here's the really painful part for the US: it is anywhere from 5 to 50% cheaper than its American competitors. This is not a small development. This is an earthquake in the AI industry. Now, before we get into what this actually means for your business, let us just set the scene a little because the reaction from the US has been pretty extraordinary. So, Jim Cramer, a well known financial analyst in the US, is already warning the US not to let US companies use Chinese models at all. The justification being national security, data privacy, the usual arguments. And look, these arguments are not completely without merit. There are genuine questions to be asked about data sovereignty when you're using any AI platform, and that includes the American ones we're all using today. If you have anything genuinely sensitive, the last place you should be putting it is on any AI platform anyway. But here is what is also true. The response from the US right now tells us everything we need to know about this, how significant this is. When the most powerful tech nation in the world starts telling its businesses what AI tools they can and cannot use, that is not a sign of confidence. That there is more than a hint of panic behind that. And China, in my personal view, is winning the AI race. And I know that's a strong take, but the evidence is backing that up fast. Now, let us talk about what this actually means for SMEs and marketing teams because that is why you're here. We all know the problem with AI licensing costs right now. I touched on this last week in my podcast because you can fire up Fable 5 on Claude, give it one command, and you've eaten through half your credits before you've even got started. And those costs are escalating. And for SMEs who are watching cash flow and profitability, that's a real and growing problem. And this is exactly where Kimi K3 becomes very interesting for SME businesses. So, what is Kimi K3? It's the latest model from Moonshot AI. It is a benchmark tested above every major US frontier model across reasoning, coding, writing, and analysis tasks. And the cost comparison is staggering. We are talking anywhere between 5 and 50% cheaper than its US equivalents, depending on the task and the volume you're running through it. SoftBank, the Japanese technology investment giant behind some of the biggest tech bets in the world, is already looking at implementing DeepSeek, which is another Chinese AI model, purely because of the cost benefits. When companies making decisions at that scale start moving in this direction, the rest of the market tends to follow. Now, here's what makes this particularly interesting for SMEs and for marketing teams specifically. Because Kimi K3 is open source, and this is the part that changes everything. Open source means that the underlying model is available for anyone to access, build on, and deploy. So you're not locked into these long subscriptions, you're not burning through credits, you're not watching your monthly AI bill climb every time your team uses it a bit more than planned. When AI becomes open source, and this is capable and it's cheap, it stops becoming a premium product that only well funded businesses can afford to use properly. It becomes a commodity. And commodities level the playing field in a very significant way for SMEs. And this brings me to something that I think is really important for businesses to understand right now because it changes how you should be thinking about your entire AI spend. For a lot of the tasks that companies are asking AI to do every single day, you simply do not need the best model to do the job efficiently. You do not need a Ferrari to drive to the supermarket. Take DeepSeek, which is also a Chinese model. DeepSeek R1 is not the newest model out there. It is not the most talked about, but here's what it does. You can run 63 commands for the cost of a single Claude Fable credit. 63 commands versus one. And for the vast majority of everyday marketing tasks, writing, social posts, drafting emails, summarizing research, or building first drafts, it does the job perfectly well. This is the conversation that businesses are going to have to start having very soon, and some of the smarter ones are already having it. We're spending a significant amount of money on AI licensing. What are we actually getting back? What's our return on investment? And we need to sit down and honestly look at the tasks teams use AI for. And then that question becomes whether you actually need the most expensive model for any of them or just some of them. The answer in most cases is no. You need the right model for the right task at the right cost. And right now, the Chinese models are making that calculation look very different to how it looked 12 months ago. Now, here's what I want to be clear about on the data question because it applies equally to every platform out there. If you're working with confidential client information or financial data or anything with legal or regulatory implications, think very cautiously about where that data is going, regardless of whether the platform is American or Chinese, or if it was a British platform. That's just good practice. But for content creation, market research, competitive analysis, and public facing market work, the risk profile is very different and the cost benefit is genuinely compelling. So, what can Kimi K3 actually do for your marketing team? Content creation at scale, research and analysis, marketing intelligence, strategy, documents, email sequences, social media, your content, competitive analysis, you're helping with your sales proposals without your sales quotes in there. And it matches or exceeds the leading US models that are delivering at a fraction of the cost. And here's what I think this means for the market more broadly. The AI landscape is about to get dramatically cheaper and dramatically more competitive. The US platforms are going to have to respond to this, which means either their prices come down significantly or their capabilities go up, and probably it will be a mixture of both. For marketing teams who have been frustrated by escalating licensing costs, by credit limits, by the feeling that you're paying more and more and more for tools delivering roughly the same results, this is genuinely good news. The practical advice given right now is this: watch Kimi K3 closely, test it for your content work, your research work, your strategy work. Look at DeepSeek R1 for your everyday task where you don't need the most powerful model available, and run them alongside whatever you're currently using and compare the output quality against the cost difference. Because if China has genuinely cracked this, and the benchmarks suggesting they have, the days of paying premium prices for US AI models simply because they were the only serious option in town are coming to an end faster than anyone in Silicon Valley wants to admit. And for SMEs who have been asking what the ROI is on their AI spend, and I know a lot of you have been asking that very question since last week, this development might just be the thing that finally makes the numbers work in your favour. That is everything for this week. And if you found this useful, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you next week.